The gloomy light emanating from the chandelier in the Kyriakis estate created lengthy shadows across the oak-paneled study, which was where Alex Kyriakis was walking around like an animal that was confined. In dramatic contrast to his normally pristine manner, his fitted suit was rumpled, and the tie was loosening from its tightness. On the other side of the room, Brady Black was seen leaning against the fireplace with a worried expression on his face and holding a glass of bourbon that had not yet been consumed. The atmosphere was dense with tension, the kind that Salem had been accustomed to experiencing all too frequently. "She's gone, Brady," Alex murmured, his voice in a tense manner that was on the verge of cracking. However, Theresa did not simply quit. Without uttering a single word, she would never do that. Brady's jaw was tightened, and his eyes were locked on the flames that were flashing. "Alex, you are completely unaware of that. Since the divorce, Theresa has been going through a bad patch. It was possible for her to simply flee." Suddenly, Alex stopped his pacing and turned around to face his brother. "Have you taken off? Without her mobile device? Without informing Tate of it? Take it from me, Brady, you are more familiar with her than that." Terror, the kind that gnawed at the edges of hope, was carried by his voice. His voice held the weight of terror. Brady slammed the glass firmly on the mantel, and the sound of the clink reverberated across the vacant room. "I have no idea what I know anymore," she said. "If, on the other hand, she is in trouble, then we are running out of time." They had been at odds with one another for some weeks, their competition over business and family loyalty causing their relationship to become strained. On the other hand, now that Theresa was gone, those grievances seemed insignificant. Theresa had not yet arrived home. Her car was still parked in the driveway, and her phone was dead when they received the call from Tate, which had been received an hour earlier. The authorities were of no assistance, citing her history of acting on impulses as the reason. However, Alex and Brady were aware of the situation. The situation was not right, completely and utterly incorrect. Alex took out of his pocket a note that was crumpled and appeared to be the same note that Tate had discovered at Theresa's apartment. "This does not sound like someone who is just taking a break," he stated while holding it out to demonstrate his point. In Theresa's handwriting, the words were scribbled, "I can't keep running away from this. No, I'm sorry." This was the 100th time that Brady had looked at the message, and he grabbed it with both hands. Trying to escape from what? What exactly was she doing at this moment? The tone of his voice was filled with annoyance, but underlying it, a sense of shame was present. After the most recent altercation between them, he had pushed Theresa away and refused to listen to her when she attempted to explain her recent paranoia. While Alex's thoughts were racing, he ran his fingers through his hair. The woman was frightened, Brady. Over the course of the previous week, she couldn't stop looking behind her, as if someone was watching her. I had assumed that she was just stressed out, but now... He began to stutter, the unspoken possibilities weighing heavily on the relationship between them. Brady's eyes became more icy. "Are you of the opinion that this is connected in any way to the Demiras, or the offer that she was attempting to make?" Alex's eyes became more fixed. There is seldom a moment when the Demiras are not involved in some shady business. In addition, Theresa was attempting to demonstrate her worth to Victor's board of directors by snooping around in their company. But if she were to cross EJ or Stefan, however, he did not complete the statement. It was well known throughout Salem that the Demira family was notoriously cruel. Even though Brady shook his head, his countenance revealed that he was terrified. She wouldn't act in such a risky manner. Not once again. But as he was saying it, uncertainty began to creep in. Neither of them had been there to pull Theresa back from the precipice this time, despite the fact that she had a history of diving headfirst into trouble. Suddenly, the door to the study slammed open, and Tate rushed in, his face a pale and angry reflection of his teenage years. "Are you two going to just stand here and argue to one another? You're doing nothing to help your mother, and she's out there." Alex stepped closer to him, while raising his hands. "We're trying to find out what's going on here, Tate. To begin, we are completely at a loss for words. Begin with the records of her phone." Suddenly, Tate's voice broke, and he snapped. "The email she sends. A week ago, she was sending a message to a person whose name was C. It was visible to me. As soon as I inquired about it, she became strange." Suddenly, Brady's head jerked up. "Is it a C? Should we say Clyde Weston?" A shiver ran through the room as the name was spoken. Clyde, the notorious criminal, had been released from prison for a number of months. and rumors had been flying that he had returned to Salem's seedy underworld. Alex's expression became more stern. "We are not dealing with a straightforward disappearance if Clyde is involved," the reporter said. "It is not a game that he plays. Rather, he plays for keeps." The terror that had taken over his rage caused Tate's eyes to widen. "Do you believe that he stole her? Why?" Brady placed his hand on his son's shoulder and maintained a calm voice despite the turmoil that was occurring in his chest. "Tate, we do not yet know the answer. We will, however, be able to locate her. I solemnly swear." Brady was the one who thought that the promise was empty. The town of Salem had a tendency to consume people in their whole, and Theresa had danced too close to the darker edges of the town. Alex was the one he turned to. "EG is someone we need to talk to. Should the Dimmers be implicated, he will have some information to provide." Although Alex gave a slight nod, his countenance was gloomy, and in the event that he does not, we continue on to Clyde. There are no games, and there are no deals. We receive responses. The brothers looked at each other, a rare instance of onness amongst them. Over the course of Salem's secrets, they had lost too much: loves, family, and trust. They were unable to lose Theresa as well. Alex's phone began to buzz just as they were about to leave the room. He stopped moving and pulled out his phone, where he saw a text message from an unknown number that read, "If you want Theresa back, stop digging. What you discover is not going to be nice." Theresa was bound and gagged, and her eyes were wide with fright as she appeared in the grainy photograph that was attached. As he leaned over, Brady's breath caught in his chest. "Oh no, my God." Tate reached for the phone, his hands trembling slightly. "Mom, we are going to have to take action." The voice of Alex was resolute. "Yes, we are. It appears that the person who supplied this got it wrong. We now have evidence that she is still alive." However, his heart was pounding with the worry that he did not express. For how long? His thoughts were racing as he pieced together the pieces of the puzzle. However, this is not just Clyde. Someone has enough power to know that we are here, discussing this topic at this same now. Someone is pulling strings. Alex quickly looked about the room, half expecting to see a hidden camera. His eyes raced to the corners of the room. "We have to speed up our pace. If they are keeping an eye on us, they recognize our approach." Desperately, Tate's voice broke through the silence. "Now let's get going." Immediately, the tone of Brady's voice was forceful but compassionate as he gripped his son's arm. "Tate, you are to remain here until we find out who we are dealing with. You are the only person who can keep this information to yourself in the event that something happens to us." As tears welled up in his eyes, Tate shook his head. "I'm not going to remain with you. She is my mother." In front of him, Alex knelt down, and his voice was soft. "Listen to me, Tate," I said. "It is our intention to secure her return, but make sure you stay protected. Right now, you are her source of strength." With a reluctance, Tate gave a reluctant nod, his shoulders dropping. As the burden of their goal began to settle over them like a storm cloud, Brady and Alex exchanged a glance with one another. The rain had stopped by the time they entered the night, leaving Salem in a spooky state of silence. It was clear to the brothers that the path that lay ahead of them would be perilous, replete with deception, treachery, and the specters of their past. On the other hand, Theresa would accept everything. The alternative seemed inconceivable to consider. However, in Salem, the worst was never the end, so they feared the worst possible outcome. However, this was only the beginning.